when one side is rooted in truth and the other is projecting their own abuse and weaponizing denial. That's not a disagreement, it's emotional abuse. Hello, truth tellers. Welcome back to the ADHD Scapegoat Podcast. I'm Angie.
I'm Jeremy. And there are always two sides to the story, but not when one side is a smear campaign.
What if I told you that there are two sides to every story is one of the most dangerous lies survivors are told. When one side is rooted in truth and the other is projecting their own abuse and weaponizing denial, that's not a disagreement. It's emotional abuse. Narcissists don't want to be understood. They want control over how you are misunderstood. Remind yourself, not everyone deserves access to your side of the story. And a quick content warning, or maybe not even a warning, maybe excitement, but we're going to be talking about manipulation, emotional abuse, and gaslighting in this episode. But understanding this idea of two sides of the story is not really what people actually want. I think it comes back to like you believing or hoping that everyone has the same intentions as you. People want connection. They don't want harm. They don't want disconnection. People want to spread love, not hate. People care about how their actions are affecting another person. They're not just going around and in complete disregard for others, right? Like, I feel when you come from the idea of, oh, there's two sides to every story, I think in a healthy relationship, yes, because there are two sides that equally listen, equally feel safe to express themselves. They are both in the conversation for growth, and whether it's a resolution or whether it's a new idea, they're coming together for the same purpose, and there's just some sort of a misunderstanding. And they need clarity from each other. But you kind of have to take the lens with abusive people. This is not that scenario. You can't assume there are two sides to every story, or it's like a he said, she said thing. You have to have some self-awareness. You have to listen to your intuition. You have to pay attention to patterns. It's the idea of, if I tell you it's, the sky is green, and you tell them the sky is purple, well, they need to look outside and see what's going on.
Right.
So a lot of times, that's where this comes into play. Is this other person hearing the story needs to actually dissect this a little bit.
What's funny is I'm thinking of several examples from your life in your current situation. There are only two sides to the story when it benefits the narcissist.
Right.
Right? So one of your new family members threatening the life of your younger brother, well, he threatened me first. There's two sides to that story. The reason I did it is because this. But the background check revealing a violent, abusive past, oh, that's made up. That's a lie.
Or it's written off.
Right.
Or, I mean, I don't even know how they're discounting it or disregarding it. It's
right. There's not two sides to the story. It's just, that's in the past. We're not going to talk about that. It's a lie, and we need to move on.
Right. Right. And I think this illusion of two sides sets, the healthy person up in these toxic situations. So using this idea silences or invalidates victims of abuse. When one side is committed to truth, the other is committed to control. That's not a difference of opinion. That's not a misunderstanding. Those are two completely different things.
Yeah. It's a power struggle.
We're not even in the same story. Mm-hmm. The narcissistic people don't want clarity. They want control over the narrative. They don't want to understand. They don't want to ask questions. They don't want you asking questions for sure. And ADHD scapegoats are often the truth tellers, and the truth tellers get punished in these systems. So I want to talk about some of the tactics that narcissists use, or narcissistic people use, to control this story. So they gaslight. That never happened. You're too sensitive. Why is the ADHD scapegoat the easiest target for the narcissist smear campaign? We're emotionally intense. We're time blind. We're rejection sensitive. And by the time we start connecting the dots, they've already burned down our reputation. ADHDers often don't defend themselves right away due to emotional overwhelm, confusion, and trauma responses. And still, we question ourselves more than we question the lie. And that doubt doesn't make them right. It makes us human. A human with the ability to self-reflect, by the way. So you're having a human delayed response to a very confusing and harmful situation. You're like, what is going on here? I'm not too sensitive. I'm being completely lied about. I'm being made out to be this, this villain or this harmful, malicious person that I'm not. What's going on here? And gaslighting's intention is to get you to start doubting your reality. And because the narcissist is presenting it in a way, with confidence, or, maybe they're feigning concern for you, and they're bringing it to you, so you question yourself. You're like, oh, maybe I am. Maybe they are worried about me. Or, man, really sounds like he believes that this happened. Did it happen? And you pause. And me and one of my siblings were talking about this, going, I remember times where I would just be like, wait, did I say I that doesn't sound like, I've never thought that. Did I say that? No, I didn't. Why would he claim I said that? It doesn't even make sense. Okay, I know I didn't say that, but in order to self-reflect, you're not the narcissist. They cannot self-reflect. They don't ask themselves, did I do that thing? Did I say that lie?
Well, they don't believe it's a lie in the first place. It's their version of the truth. That's why the documentation and you repeating something back to them can be so jarring for a narcissist. It's because they probably don't even remember that they said it, or they truly believe it, and it's just, that's their truth, and so they're so far ahead now. Why are you going, well, I don't want to talk about the past. Why are you talking about that? When did I say that?
Right. And I feel like their knee-jerk reaction is to gaslight.
Yeah.
To minimize, to belittle you, to say something completely off topic, to like, deflect from you actually continuing to call them out. Another tactic they use is projection. So they accuse you of doing what they're doing. Have you ever had the experience of having to defend yourself in a conversation you didn't even know you were having? Yes. Narcissists are already telling their version to anyone who will listen while you're still trying to process what just happened. They don't want resolution. They want a following, blind obedience. You don't owe them a counter narrative. You owe yourself the truth. And ADHD scapegoats are often called selfish, lazy, attention-seeking, when they're actually the opposite. And the toxic person is actually acting out that behavior. You end up being like, what happened? And then you're like, wait, they said this to who? Why were they even talking about me? How did this even come up? Or, oh, this person knows about this, and you're jumping around, you're jumping through hoops to figure out like how this even happened. You're like, oh, so the narcissist hates drama and hates gossip, but they're gossiping about me? Like what? And here's the thing. When they're projecting all of these things, they're gossiping in a way to get ahead of it because they feel like the first person that says it is going to be believed. If you're the first person giving that information, they're going to believe you first. Now, if I try to say, I didn't do any of that, he's the one doing that. Well, it kind of sounds like you're defending yourself now. Oh my God. You can't win. So what did you, as the ADHD scapegoat, finally realize after being painted as crazy, unstable, or toxic? You realize that those labels weren't reflections of who you are. They're projections of what the narcissist couldn't face. The real damage, by the way, isn't just the lie. It's how long we live in fear of becoming the version of what they invented. They make you believe that that is who you are. So you need to reclaim your story by remembering who you are before they tried to distort you. And that does take some work. Again, going back to actually listening to your intuition is so essential. And that's what allows you to kind of break these things down with the support of a coach or a therapist or, a safe person. Is when you're having these safe conversations with safe people, you're able to tap into your intuition and get back to who you know you are and who you feel like you've been defending in these situations. Because when you're able to self-reflect and own your mistakes and, hold yourself accountable and want to do better and grow, they're able to place more blame on you because they know you're going to do that. They know you're a good person who wants to do better. They know you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They take advantage of it. And projecting what they're actually doing onto you makes you already behind in the game. You have to defend yourself because they're claiming lies as facts. And, in my situation, calling out the abuse and saying, that's not okay, when my family member was being disrespected and speaking up for it. That person knew right then that I was not going to allow him to abuse. So he needed to project that I was controlling, that I was manipulating, that I was disrespecting her.
Right. By trying to empower her, encourage her, talk to her, have any contact.
Right.
That was manipulation. That was control.
Because if I empower this loved one to know their worth, she wouldn't allow herself to be disrespected, Mm-hmm. So, yeah, not only are narcissists skilled in these tactics in order, to protect their lies, but it does become second nature. And once they see that it works, and once they see that someone will believe them, and they see that someone will give them a second chance, or someone's going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Okay, next step. What more can I do?
Mm-hmm. That's how, your, half of the family facilitated that. They made it easy for this person to infiltrate and take over, that person's life, because they just went along with the lie. They made it easy. They helped minimize the people who did speak up. Mm-hmm. They helped minimize that voice. And this new person in the family is probably thinking like, oh, it's easy and I have support backing me up. Mm-hmm. Let me see what else I can pull. Mm-hmm. And then we would hear stories of it happening more and more and mm-hmm. more from the people who are still supporting him. Mm-hmm. We would hear worse stories.
And that's the thing. Until someone has consequences for their actions, or until they're held accountable, they do gain a sense of entitlement around these behaviors. They feel empowered to continue to do harm, and there is no reason for them to change, because all of this is going their way. They're getting what they want, and they don't care who they're harming as long as they're getting what they want, mm-hmm. which was even actually said multiple times. But and the third tactic we're going to talk about is smear campaigns, which we've done an episode. It's actually been one of the most popular episodes because I think everyone that's listening, it's eye-opening. It was eye-opening for me to learn about what it was, because I just always thought everyone is talking shit about me behind my back. That's what I used to say. Or, oh yeah, of course they're saying that about me. But I never actually looked at, how insidious the smear campaign is. But if you've never noticed how fast a narcissist tells their version of the events, like before you even know that, this was created, before this situation hit, you didn't even know. That's not an accident. It's a smear campaign. While you're spinning from confusion and trying to piece everything together, they're already collecting allies to rewrite the script. the next time you hesitate to defend yourself, remember, silence won't save you, but clarity can. So you have to own the clarity with reality and understand, like, it sounds confusing to like, wait, what? What happened? And not defend yourself? Because you immediately jump to, oh my God, that's not who I am. Why would anyone think that? And you hesitate because you're confused. And like, this is the first time you're getting this information, but they've already planted that seed. They've been working on that. They live in this fear space of you destroying their lives with the truth. That they're constantly trying to find a way to discredit you. And the moment you speak up, of course, you're unstable. You're crazy. I mean, for me, I was trying to control this person. I wasn't supportive. I was meddling. In what way? And narcissists often tell everyone their side of the story before you even knew a situation existed. You didn't know that this person was even mad at you. You know, in my situation, I kept asking, are you mad at me? There's a disconnect here. Did I do something? Please tell me if I did something that, if you're mad at me, or, tell me what happened so we can talk about it, so I can, apologize. I can make amends. I can do better. Like, I want to know. Nope, nothing's wrong. And yet, there's all of this smear campaign going on in the background, that all of these things are happening, that I'm doing all of these awful things. Well, I shouldn't say. It's not that I'm doing all of these awful things. It's I'm manipulative. I'm controlling. There's all of these narratives around my character, my intentions, assuming my intentions. No facts or anything that I did is being stated.
Right.
It's all about character assassination type stuff with zero information about what I did or what happened.
Well, and it's easy for that person to manipulate your family member because you have limited contact with that family member by design.
Right.
And so
by their design, by the
narcissist design.
Yeah.
And so when you identified abusive behavior and you called it out, communication was shut off further. So the few times that you did have contact with that family member and you would ask, is something wrong? Did I do something wrong? In that moment, they don't have an answer for you. But when the narcissist finds out that that family member talked to you, every day they're continuing to feed that person. Why do you talk to her? She's manipulative. She's trying to control you. She's telling lies. She's trying to be manipulative. She's trying to tell you what to do. She's trying to tell you what job to have. She's saying I'm a bad person. Let me tell you my version of your family member gets that every single day, and you only get one chance maybe every 4 weeks to even have a normal conversation. And so when that person shuts down, it's confusing for you. It's what did I do wrong?
Right.
Like, why did you cut off communication with me? In their head, it's been ingrained in their head that, oh, I shouldn't be talking to them because they are a bad person, when in fact that's not even really their opinion.
Right.
It's the narrative that they're just going along with because it's easier, and they don't want to believe that the person that they're in a new relationship with would be these bad things.
Or that would want harm to come to you. And I think that's the other part of, like, yeah, we don't have, other than the information that we've documented that has been shared with other family members that this person said. We don't know the day in and day out, but all you need to do is look up a pattern of behavior, which we talked about in the last episode, and actually educate yourself on narcissistic abuse tactics or domestic violence tactics and the way these things are used. And it's very clear to see. And even if there is any confusion on some of these tactics, maybe pausing and questioning, is this what's going on? Could be helpful for you to understand and see clearly what's going on. And you're right, like no one wants to believe that this person that they care about would want to harm their relationships or would want to isolate them from their supports or would want them thinking that these people that they thought loved and cared about them actually don't. I think they will take, part of their lies and part of their tactics of the abuse is taking this teeny tiny bit of truth and making it a huge lie. Mm-hmm. So like taking a natural, like joking between siblings or taking, one conflict years ago out of context and using it as a little piece of truth is what helps them gaslight and start the smear campaign and project all of these things. They're projecting this idea from one instance. And you're right, the repetitive nature, which, there's tons of documentaries, there's tons of books and documentation about this just clear pattern of behavior that once you educate yourself, again, I think we've said this before, you cannot unsee it. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it.
It's remarkable because this ranges from public figures down to close family members, right? When you see it, like, at least for me, I almost want to start laughing because it's like, how does anyone fall for this, first of all? But it's almost like they literally have a playbook. And it's like, in this situation, do what it says in paragraph 4, page 3, and this is what will happen. It's that plain to see. And in the situation, when I mentioned earlier, in your family, this new person who came into your family and saw how easy it was to manipulate because they had the support of other family members.
By the brokenness of the family.
By the brokenness. This person sent you and some of your siblings a message and said, verbatim, this is verbatim, I'm training your family to XYZ. He said, I'm training your family to let me do this. Mm-hmm. And you shared that with the family members that you have no contact with now. And they did nothing. Mm-hmm. They don't care. Because
and that's
they've been training you guys this whole time. They're like, yeah, that tracks, right? It's part of the playbook. It's that's when you see, like, when narcissists are backed into a corner and they realize they're losing control. They don't have control over the whole family. That would have been very nice. But knew they were going to come up against, some obstacles. But okay, we can scapegoat Angie. She's the problem. Everyone makes her the problem. She's the butt of every joke. This is perfect. Let's scapegoat her. Well, then the next sibling wakes up and says, hold up, this isn't okay. Oh, well, now they're the problem. Boom, you're out. New scapegoat.
Then the next person says, no, I've tried to clear this up. I've really listened to everybody. This is not okay. Nope, you're the problem. That's when they lash out and they say things like that reveal the things that they're doing. And people tell you who they are. Mm-hmm. You need to listen to them. And wanting someone to be something other than they are is not going to make them that person. Hoping that someone will change and be the person you want them to be is not going to do that. Saying there's two sides to every story to silence someone is not going to get you two sides of the story. It's going to get you two completely different stories. All right, let's jump on to the final tactic. It's triangulation. So using others, friends, family, therapists, anybody, like teachers, just acquaintances, to reinforce the narcissist version of reality. It is crazy when the smear campaign, started, who I would hear things from. Assuming my character or assuming my intentions or, giving a narrative of a story that was a complete lie. And you're just going, huh? How? What? How did that person even, it's like they literally will talk to anybody that will hear their side of the story, their version of events, their narrative. They want to just get ahead of it. So to me, it's like, if someone's just up and saying something like that, I take a step and what's going on with it? I've always done that, but what? And I'll ask questions. And I think a lot of times the same people that say there's two sides to every story, they're just oh, well, something must have really gone on because they're really upset about this. Or, oh, I don't want to get involved. That's a family issue. So I'm not going to even ask a clarifying question. What do you mean by that? What do you mean she's trying to control her? How is she trying to control her? Not even asking that because I don't want to get involved in the family stuff. And so you're left as the person being triangulated against, isolated, confused, and discredited by anyone. And we talked about this on the episode with smear campaigns about how it makes you do a self-isolation because you don't know where you're going to go and run into someone, or, maybe you are prepared for an event that you might see someone there and you're not sure what they've heard about you. And it's shocking, some of the stuff you hear. Sometimes it's not as shocking. Sometimes it's this exact same narrative that they follow that has zero credibility or zero facts. But it's jarring to experience that. And I used to wonder why people believed the narcissist story or the emotionally immature family member before even hearing mine. And I realized that it's because manipulation moves faster than reflection. And ADHDers, especially when you're scapegoated, we often freeze while we calculate the right way to respond or when we're trying to connect the dots. But the truth doesn't need to be loud to be real. So instead of proving yourself, start protecting your peace. Huge lesson I learned. I have always known that I can't control anybody else. And I never understood someone trying to say something bad about me that's not true to get ahead of something. I just thought, if someone doesn't like me, they don't like me, maybe I'm not for everybody, but I knew I wasn't doing something harmful. And to really see that, oh, they don't care what they're saying. They don't reflect to see the harm they're causing. So they're just getting all the information out there against you. And you're constantly hit with new information, new accusations, new stories that, how do you prepare for complete made up lies about you? You can't.
Yeah, that's the most difficult part, right? Is because it's their version of reality. And so each time they tell the story, they probably feel a little empowered to do it, but
and they start
also
to believe it more.
Think there's no harm in adding a little extra this into the story. And so it's like a giant game of telephone. By the time it gets back to you, it feels like, and that person who doesn't know anything about the story but was told by the smear campaign source might misremember a little bit. And so when they tell the story, it becomes even more outrageous. And so...
and if that person pushes back at all, they need to push a little harder and say you did something a little worse, because they need this person to believe you. They need to see if this person believes you. If this person really pushes back and is like, no, I know, Angie, I'm calling bullshit, then...
well, you don't know this. And then that's when they add a little mustard.
Or they're going to belittle that person. Or they're going to turn around as soon as they leave that person. They'll say, well, maybe that's your experience in the moment to save face. But then they're going to turn around. Now they're going to badmouth that person because that person doesn't believe them. That person's calling them out on their toxic lies. So now that person needs to go down. Honestly, I don't even know how they keep up with this. It's absurd.
But, I can't help but think of the scenario 2 Thanksgivings ago. Your aunt will invite your aunt and uncle are very hospitable, are very gracious, and always invite family members to Thanksgiving, knowing the situation in your family. It was approached very carefully, but your older brother went out of his way to approach her first about an invite, and not only, be first, he had to make it known, I know there's a tough situation, and put himself he became a martyr and said, I don't want anyone to be uncomfortable. So I'm happy to step away if Angie and her family want to come to Thanksgiving. But again, he needed to be first so that his version of the truth could be out there for everyone to hear.
And so he looked like a decent, good person who...
because he knows the truth is going to come out in a family setting if you were to be there. And so he's got to...
He doesn't want to be there for that.
No, he doesn't want to be there for it, but he needs to cut it off. He needs to be first. Let me just let you know what's going on.
Yeah.
Here's what's going on. And also, we'd love to come, but we're happy to step back if Angie wants to come because I'm the bigger person.
Yeah. So I'm doing this kind thing. It's the same situation when he acted like he was, really concerned about my weight, but never actually came to me with it. It was just talking about everybody else and then sprinkling in that I'm on...
that you're a drug addict.
I'm a drug addict because I take medication for my ADHD.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? Like, it's these, feigned concern.
Which did you ever call him out on that in person?
No, I don't.
I couldn't remember if we did on that family call, but
no,
that's another one where you have proof that he said that, And if you called him out on it, he would deny it and say,
Yeah. He said he never talked shit about me. Right. And I know it's a lie.
Right.
Like,
or he would spin it in a way, oh, I didn't mean that. I just meant that your ADHD medication is an appetite suppressant.
Yeah.
That's all I meant. But that's not the way it was presented.
No, and there was no concern about my weight. It was to make me look unstable, to make me look unwell, to make me look like I'm struggling, to make me look bad.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to, combat that. And I think that's part of the reason why some of these tactics and the way that, this abuse comes up and why it needs to be talked about more is because there are so many little small ways in which it's infiltrated into your daily life that it is hard to explain. It doesn't have to be, it's just like the way domestic abuse isn't just physical abuse. It's like, yeah, if you see someone has a black eye, you're like, okay, there's domestic abuse going on. But you have no idea what was happening without the bruises. You have no idea what they've endured all day. And when they're able to spin it or project it onto you or gaslight the situation based on who they're with, triangulate people against you, it's hard for you to really pinpoint the problem without sounding like you're nitpicking, but you know what it is.
Well, you've had conversations with people you grew up with.
Yes.
Who have listened to this podcast, asked to have a cup of coffee with you. You don't drink coffee.
No, but no, you really just asked to have conversations.
Asked to have a conversation with you. And have expressed, in short, oh my God, I never would have had any idea the verbal or emotional abuse that any of you guys endured in your house. You seemed like a perfect family to me, which is exactly what your dad was going for. Outwardly, we look perfect. In the home, though, it's whatever I say goes. Here are your punishments. You live in fear. But everyone else sees you guys as, through rose-colored glasses. Everything looks...
Or it's the people coming forward and saying, oh, I experienced that, or I saw him behave like that, or I witnessed that, but I had no idea it was coming at you like that. I had no idea the situation was that bad for you. But that makes sense now.
Yeah, it's always...
Right.
I never realized it was as bad. I always suspected that something was going on, but we never saw it. So I guess we just assumed... Yeah, everybody has their own things, but to hear the levels that it was happening, it was shocking to them, but also it was, the answer's always been, but I'm not really surprised.
Right. And I think there's also that part of, well, they must love their, the parents, they love their kids. Or if someone did see something that was, unsettling for them, or they think that was just a one-off thing. I haven't seen it over and over and over. Or it's not like every time this guy shows up, he's like, shoving his kid or, swearing at them or something, super blatant and obnoxious. So I just assumed that rage was a one-off. And this outside person could be like, I was also kind of shocked that it happened. I was trying to regulate. I was trying to process. I was trying to understand what I should be doing. All of those things for each individual too. But yeah, there's not one person that's, come forward to say, oh no, that doesn't add up. I don't believe you. I mean, there might be people saying that behind my back, but I don't know who they've talked to, and I don't really care.
Right.
I think it takes, a lot of someone understanding the truth to come forward and say something and reach out to me. And that's a part about, trauma survivors, is when you hear a story that either validates your own experience or you feel like I've had that exact feeling at some point, or wow, that sounds a lot like me. That person's not lying. That person's not making it up. The feeling in their words, even if this situation isn't exactly the same. You relate to the pain. You relate to the experience. You relate to the abandonment, the betrayal, the isolation, the harm. And they're telling the truth. And the cost to the ADHD scapegoat is huge. The isolation we talked about, when the people you love believe lies. And I think I definitely talked about this through the grief episode, but like the fact that this family member could even believe the things that were being said about me was so painful. And I just felt the relationship was just ripped away with no care for it being a worthwhile relationship. I always thought of it as a relationship that I couldn't live without. It's part of me. And to know that someone could convince them to hate me and to believe things about me that are completely not true is a huge cost. I trusted this person completely. I felt like I could tell her everything. I felt like anything I said to her was safe. Anything she said to me was safe. I would always be there for her. I had her back. I cared so much for her. I wanted to see her succeed. And now she thinks that I'm this horrible person who doesn't want her to be happy and is actively trying to harm her. It's like mind-blowing.
Well, we've discussed this, I think, behind the scenes. I don't know that we've touched on it, but, I think there was a certain sense of pride there and sort of self-esteem issues, in the sense that I really believe that this is a core part of the break in that relationship, is that in your family member's previous relationship, you warned her, hey, I found this, like, all you did was Google the person's name, found a police report that he was arrested for drug possession, and said, I think you should question this person. She did. He told her, oh, that was a one-time thing. So she believed him. Then he neglected their relationship, I guess is the easiest way to put it.
Right.
She endured it. She put up with it because, again, that's what she knew growing up.
Right.
This is what love looks like. it turns out he was using drugs the entire time, and that was the end of their relationship because he was using drugs and, couldn't get through that. And I think she was really hurt by that, but I think that she carried the resentment of an embarrassment
Right.
of, oh, I got myself into this situation. I can't believe that Angie saw it and I didn't. How embarrassing. That's never going to happen to me again. And so when she got into this relationship, everyone saw the abuse. You saw it first. I saw it with you. You said, hey, this. I gave him the benefit of the doubt at first. Turns out you were right. Found that it was way worse than we ever could have imagined. And now you take this information to her, and that guilt, that resentment, that embarrassment cropped back up. And I think she doubled down on it because she's further away from you. She has support in the attacks on you in the form of the smear campaigns. And I think that it just became the easier route to believe it, to perpetuate it.
If you think about it, this all stems from the narcissistic abuse in our household and being shamed for making a mistake, being shamed for doing something wrong. Like, in no way have I ever said to her, it's your fault for being a kind and caring person. It's your fault for loving someone. It's your fault for wanting someone who treats you the way you treat them. I've never said that. I have said, you deserve to be treated the way you treat others. You don't deserve to be disregarded. You don't deserve to have your time wasted. You don't deserve to be talked to like that. You are so valuable. You are so wonderful. And it's not a mistake for anyone to be open and want to love someone. You just have to be aware of when that crosses a line. And now it no longer aligns with the person you are. Now you're giving everything and you're losing yourself.
We talked about that a couple episodes ago. It's got to be 50-50. Sometimes it's a little more. Sometimes it's a little less. But you have to both want to grow together.
And there's no shame in making a mistake. There's no shame in saying, at any point, I had a gut feeling. I didn't listen to it. I wanted to believe that this wasn't reality. I wanted to believe in this person. I wanted to believe they can be the person they keep telling me they're going to be. That's not a shameful thing. I mean, in the past, I dated people that I was like, yeah, I wish I would have woken up sooner. Or I, would just allow myself to be walked all over by certain friends and things, and just because I didn't want to be left out. And I don't carry shame. I'm like, you know what? I made what I thought was the best decision for me. Now that I'm self-reflecting and I'm more aware of what actually was happening, I realized that was coming from a place of insecurity for me. Mm-hmm. That came from a place that I didn't have healed yet, and I was still seeking it out from other people. I don't shame other people for things. I want to empower people to know their worth. Whatever they want to do, as long as it's not harming other people, more power to them. And I will support that. And that's the thing, we've talked about that before too, how ADHDers will be your biggest cheerleader when they understand and they feel, mutually respected and, treated with love. They have your back always. So if there was any shame that's being felt, it's just from her feeling like she's not allowed to make a mistake, and she is. And she's allowed to change her mind. And she's allowed to say, this is not okay. Or, no, that's not what I want. She's allowed to just say no. I think it's really hard to know that without a lot of practice.
Or support.
And when you're getting support, the talk about, you are the people that you surround yourself with. If you're surrounding yourself with people that are reiterating this toxic message, you can't grow. You have to be around people who hold you accountable, who tell you the truth even when it's hard, who sit down to have hard conversations, to have a closer connection, to be there with you during the hard times. And I think if you're carrying shame around a mistake or carrying shame at all around something, you need to look into that. Mm-hmm. You really need to reflect. We kind of went down a road there.
We went
down a road.
Yeah, that's my fault.
And it's okay. Another cost, we'll go back to the cost for the ADHD scapegoat, is the hypervigilance. So you're always second guessing words, tones, motives. We've talked about this where we'd go out and I'd be like, oh man, did that person not like me? I feel like they didn't like me. And maybe I said this, wrong, or, I laughed too hard at something. I don't know. Hypervigilance around second guessing things that you did or said. Masking, even more. You're trying to prove that you're good because you don't want to be told you're not. We just talked about it, guilt and shame loop, but internalizing the narrative that they feed you. Strained relationships with family, friends, partners, anyone who's been manipulated or misled. You don't know where to turn. You don't know who's a safe person until you're confronted with it. I think I talked about, it was like episode 23 or something, Born to be the Scapegoat, where I talk about, actually having conversations with my safe siblings about how I was having a hard time talking to them about some hard topics that we were all going through, and understanding that came from our previously strained relationship, and how we're growing and we're learning to trust each other more, and we're learning that we are safe because we're not pitted against each other anymore, and we're not manipulated to think we're out to get each other. So it does take a lot of practice, and it is hard, because my thought was always, man, if I give them my trust again, if they break that trust, I'm broken.
Yeah.
And it is hard. It's hard to trust when you
you
come from this, but taking those steps and educating yourself to be aware of when that's showing up, and if it's really that strained relationship, or you're still healing from other relationships. And that difficulty trusting people, even with good intentions, you are constantly questioning others' good intentions. The message that we received from my father was, you think they're your friend? You think they care about you? So you were always questioning if someone was doing something nice for you. Were they doing it to manipulate you? Were they doing it, for their own gain? And it was really hard. So trust is a big one, and you should be cautious with your trust. You shouldn't blindly give your trust to someone. Trust is earned by someone showing you a pattern of care and love and safety. So what if your greatest betrayal wasn't what they did, but how others believed their version of it? Being misinterpreted is its own kind of trauma. It's basically like a secondary layer to your trauma, especially when your silence gets mistaken for guilt. But you don't have to prove you're good to undo what they said. You only have to be real. Speak your truth where it's safe and let the rest fall away. And it's so hard to do that. It's so hard to they're going to say what they're going to say anyway. It's exhausting to defend yourself against complete and utter lies. And your silence isn't guilt. If someone wants to know the truth will reveal itself in time, especially when they can't say, the scapegoat said this, they said this, they keep saying this. When you're not saying anything at all, they can say whatever they want and make up, and they're going to attack somebody else, which of course you don't want, but they don't have any ammunition to try to harm you. You only have your truth, and you're allowed to speak the truth. So you need to reclaim your story. And it's so hard, but self-awareness is your superpower, always. Validate your experience. It happened, journal about it, it's real, you're not crazy, work through it if you're still struggling with it. Write down your triggers when they pop up, what happened, what time of day was it, what was the situation? Just write down little things to say, oh, this is what's coming up, this is what I'm feeling. Practice radical self-trust. Know that your intuition is telling you something and believe it. Document your experiences like we talked about. Voice notes, journaling, keeping records of text messages and things that are said. Note when someone says something offhand that kind of throws you. Invest in safe and validating relationships, people that genuinely care about you. Give them the energy that you used to give this toxic person. Choose truth over approval. It is freedom. I do not need to be a part of any idea of a family or a group that's built on lies. I won't. So, in closing, truth is not up for debate. You don't need to convince everyone, and you don't need to beg for understanding. The people meant to be in your life will feel your truth. They will hear you, and they know that you're telling the truth. You're not broken. You were blamed. You don't need to do that. There are not two sides to every story. There is a lie in an abusive situation, and there is reality. Don't let anyone minimize what happened to you. Own your truth. You're not broken. So I want to ask everyone, share this episode and the past couple that we've kind of been talking about, these, pretty intense, serious situations in navigating toxic relationships. Share these episodes with someone in those relationships or someone expressing the need to understand these situations. message me if you're in a scapegoated situation, if you're in the healing process, if, that's a lot of the messages I got. I just got diagnosed, or, oh my gosh, I'm realizing that this is what's going on. And, thank you. You make me feel not alone. Different things like that. I think it's empowering for everyone to validate that experience. And it also helps us know what people are looking to hear, what people need more of around this experience. Because we could talk about all of this stuff all the time, but if you're really seeking, and if you're really seeking a certain aspect of it, we'd love to hear about it and kind of direct content toward you. And subscribe to our podcast if you haven't yet, either on our YouTube channel or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, because we will talk about more ADHD, more trauma-informed, truth-telling situations. Like, we talk about our experiences and our knowledge and, how awareness allows us all to grow and be better humans. So until next time.